Hey guys, how's it going? It's Jiky here. I got a couple of requests to redo the DPS loadout that I use since now it's different from the last video that I dropped. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys my opinion on what the generic precision DPS loadout is for all powers. And obviously the one I use for electric. Before I start though, I want to talk about precision DPS in general real quick. Ever since people started using it, there's been a bit of backlash because people think that the combos are too overpowered along with the stats that come with the artifacts. People don't like the fact that there's an artifact that boosts your precision damage by too large of an amount, which is the Venomous, along with the fact that dual wield Flurry Shot and Bow into Smoke Bomb are too overpowered. Now to add Flame to the Fire, the developers released the Eye of the Gemini on the Atlantis DLC drop, which allows you to do 20% of damage of all the players that stand in your circle in controller and DPS role, and it allows you to recharge everyone's supercharge in healer and tank role. Now granted, you can't really blame anyone for being so salty about the game because it's been that way for a long time, ever since I can remember. I started playing a lot more during the Bombshell Paradox DLC, and back during that AM era, I was originally mental. So I'd get constant shit for being a 1, 2, 3, 4 DPS power. That was a flavor of the month. So I eventually went to Ice, and then I got shit again for being a clip 3 powers and spam Arctic Gust flavor of the month power. And then I ended up going Celestial, and I was Celestial for a really long time, up until revamp actually. And back then you could keep up with most of the DPSs by just clipping 4 powers and spamming your Retribution combo, along with popping your Supercharge. I forgot what the name was, but it was a 25%er, which you could essentially keep up 24/7 with the head mod. Now, obviously, it didn't matter that I was Celestial going up against Ice and Mental powers because I was only spamming 1 power combo, so it was still fake damage according to most people. And then after that, I went Sorcery for a little bit during the last Fortress Survival mode we had, and I got shit, obviously, because I was a pet class power, along with the fact that I was doing fake damage off of Flip Slash. So what I'm trying to say is, there's always going to be something cheesy about this game, about how you DPS or how you play. People are going to complain, but realistically, no matter if something gets nerfed, like, we're just going to move on to the next thing, like the next best thing. If they nerf the precision combos or even the artifacts, like, realistically, I'm just gonna go might base. Like, who cares? And even if it's not strong enough, then I'll switch powers to nature. Like, it doesn't matter. But the thing I like about precision is that you can honestly be all powers and do a lot of damage. And the reason I like it personally, along with most of my league mates, is because it gives us some leeway to do whatever we want with our loadout. Like, there's no set loadout for precision. So for example, when we go into our 2 to 4 man runs, we all run some sort of hybrid loadout. So usually when I'm healing, I'd be in healer stance with healer gear, but I'd put in my supercharged generator and my weapon buff in, and that alone allows me to do half the damage of the actual DPS in the run, which is a lot of damage for a 4-man run. And then, excuse me, I'd put in speed drain so I could feed off supercharge to everyone, including the tank and the DPS, so we'd have that extra little burn for their crits. And then the other 3 spots I'd leave for something like, I don't know, Biocap, Priority Heal, and Galvanize or something. And during the Hive DLC, when we started solo supporting that last boss, I would put Group Transductor in place, along with our other Prec DPSs if they had group shields. Like, I think one of us was Celestial at the time too. So our main healer was electric with group trans. I was in DPS role, which was essentially the same loadout I have right now, but instead of speed drain, I would have group transductor to help out. And then the other DPS too, instead of their crit supercharge, they would have group shield. Because realistically, when you're running as a league, no one gives a shit about the scoreboard. People are more excited about finishing content, like solo supporting, things like that, right? So yeah, I'd run that, and I'd run 2 extra shields so I could be one of the designated guys picking up rocks. And honestly, the point is, don't be deterred from trying different things. Especially when you're playing with like-minded people, if you guys want to try different stuff out, go for it 100%. Just as a fun little thing to think about, back then a lot of people used to switch powers and make like the most OP group compositions. But in my opinion, the best one would be 1 rage tank, 1 quantum troll, 1 electric healer, with the healer running a 25%er with Gemini to feed off everyone else, because you can do it 24/7, and 5 prec based DPSs that are all electric. and all of them have group transductor in. That would be unstoppable. Imagine if survival mode was out or content on the first day, group transductor up 24/7, and everyone would constantly be at 100% supercharge. So I'm just saying, there's like, as cheesy as it sounds, it's just interesting to think about these things and different group compositions, and again, playing four-mans and different things you like. So now I'm gonna end rant. I'm gonna get into the actual loadout and stuff. My precision is better than last time, 21,400. White mods, blast adapter, supercharged speed drain for the head, because this loadout revolves around stealing everyone's damage. Relentless precision, accelerated flux, penetrating strikes. There's nothing useful for electric for legs. Explosive block, but you can put in what you want. Max damage, and yeah, the artifacts that I use. These are the three artifacts you're gonna need. You're gonna need Venom Wrist, Eye of Gemini, and Scrap of the Soul Cloak. Honestly, if you have all of these at rank 80, so 80 Venom, 80 Gemini, and 80 Soul Cloak, you're gonna be fine. Like, that's all you need. The only reason my Venom Wrist is at 160 is because I needed one of the artifacts for the feat to get to 160, and there were a couple double XP weekends, but there hasn't been one for a while, so I just fed it into my Gemini so I could be doing all these 2-man, 3-man runs easier. But yeah, essentially Venom Wrist Dispenser, whenever you use your weapon buff, it increases your precision by 54% in this case. It depends on the level of your artifact. At 80, it's going to be 35, and honestly, that's enough, especially if you're trying to DPS on an alt. So it lasts for 6 seconds, which is half of the cooldown of the weapon buff, which is going to come into play later. Eye of the Gemini and DPS roll for at level 160, you're gonna be able to summon Pollux Gaze, which is gonna trigger when you hit a supercharge. So it's gonna summon an orange circle around you, and for 6 seconds, everyone standing in that circle that does damage, you're gonna get 20% of that damage. And the cooldown is also for the 6 seconds that it's up, which means that you can't constantly stack circles on top of your own circles, and you can't stack with other people, because that would cause an exponential amount of damage. And then Scrap of the Soul Cloak, which just helps you regenerate supercharge faster. Yeah, that's it for stats. Skill point allocation, I don't think it's really important. Just get Weapon Mastery into Flurry Shot and Explosive Shot, and then into Smoke Bomb. For super speed, you're going to need speed drain. Phase dodge if you are super speed. If you're not super speed, it's not the end of the world, but you can't get phase dodge, so it sucks for you. Iconic powers, robot sidekick, hard light shield if you want. I just have it as an extra, because sometimes I run 2 shields for different things, like I said before. Weapons expert, critical attack chance, critical attack damage, everything into precision, the rest into might, unless you're soft little boy and you need some health, go ahead. Doesn't matter as long as most of them are in precision. So essentially the loadout is the same as the last video I dropped. Most of your damage is going to be coming off of your dual wield into flurry for a single target. So before, with different powers and such, a lot of people put an AoE or something that hits hard in the first one, but for this general loadout for all powers, it's going to be your supercharge generator, no matter what power you are, your weapon buff, whatever it's called, phase dodge if you have it, if not, just put a shield in, speed drain, or any other 2500 for that matter, honestly, but I still like speed drain because it does nice damage. Shield, and then robot sidekick. This is going to be the generic precision DPS loadout for all powers, unless you're one of those powers that has some little quirks and kinks to it, like gadgets, mental, nature, maybe sorcery, and I don't know, water. And then I'm going to go over that at the end of the video, but this is going to be your base loadout. So essentially what happens when you hit a supercharge, and you get a little orange circle around you for 6 seconds, that's the Eye of the Gemini. Everyone standing in this circle in your group that does damage, you're going to get 20% of that. So realistically, I'm just going to build up supercharge here. Realistically, when you go into a raid, you're going to be doing between 40 to 50,000 damage a second, with having 3 or 4 other DPSs standing near you, depending on your group composition. Doesn't matter if they're precision or might, they're still going to be doing a lot of damage in that circle, and overall it's going to be better for your league. Now obviously a lot of people run away from the circle, but those are pugs, so hopefully you're in a half decent league that doesn't care about that, and you guys can crush content together. So ignore those parsers, I was just building up supercharge. Essentially what's going to happen is when I start off a fight, I usually go into raids with 100% supercharge. If I don't, then I'll just get into my combos normally. If you don't know what phase dodge does, is it allows you to clip faster, so instead of doing an extra half a second of animation for weapon buff, I'd hit phase dodge and immediately get into my combo. So like that, I don't have to wait around for my fist to go up in the air to show that I hit my weapon buff. And then obviously this is going to be your main source of damage output, doing dual wield into flurry, and then you refresh it and then keep going. But whenever I start off fights, I'm at 100% supercharge. I'm going to try to get that speed drain off first. Speed drain does a bit of dot damage and it slows down ads and such, but we're just using it for the circle on the ground where everyone's around it and you're going to be taking their damage. So realistically, I'd be starting off a boss fight like this. I'd be clipping speed drain into weapon buff, I'd get into it, and then I know my venom wrist buff is going to die out at the halfway mark, which is when I'm going to pop my next speed drain into phase dodge and keep going, and I'm going to pop the next one when the weapon buff is back up. So I popped 3 already and I'm only at the halfway mark. Now because of phase dodges cooldown, it's not going to be a perfect rotation each time. So be careful so you don't stack your Geminis by accident. As you can see, that's a decent parser because of the extra dot damage that speed drain does. But again, realistically, it's going to be way more than that because you're going to have buddies inside your circle. So in a raid situation where your troller is also buffing you when your tank's running your cog, or if someone else is and you got supplies going off and all that jazz, you're going to be doing way more damage than just sub 20k. And if you haven't watched my other video, I use phase dodging to clip other things too aside from speed drain. I'm just going to wait for my supercharge to be at 0 and my phase dodge to be up at the same time so I can start incorporating orbitals and such. I'm going to hit off trinket right now. I do it in between supercharge generator and weapon buff. And again, make sure you're DPSing for 6 seconds after weapon buff. I kind of messed up phase dodge there. I could have gotten into the combo faster. But yeah, I fucked up. Ignore the parsers up till this point. I'm just showing you guys how I clip. And obviously in raids these days, you're not going to be continuously DPSing like this because both Sea Beast and Quorum have phases where they go invincible for a sec or they disappear. In Crown Elite, you could probably continuously pop these off. It'd be hard in the first boss, easy in the last boss, but you just gotta adapt. So essentially, the specific tactics that we use when we run a raid, we make a designated man. So instead of just popping our Geminis willy-nilly, we instead of assigning like one spot in the map, we say like, okay, today Fiji is going to be our designated man, which means wherever he goes is where we're going to go and drop the Gemini on him, which is going to be the general area of where all the DPSs are going to be. Because if we're going to set like, okay, the middle of the map or this corner of the map or something, something's going to happen, someone's going to drop, or there's going to be a mechanic where we can't go there, so we have to go somewhere else. So if you assign one person to be the guy that you're all dropping your Geminis off, he's going to be paying attention to the mechanics, obviously. Hopefully, actually, so when he moves around, all you do is just follow him, keep dropping your Geminis. In terms of AoE, again, it's the same thing as my other video. Most of your damage is coming off of Bone to Smoke Bomb. So starting off a fight, do it the same. Let me build a little supercharge. So if I notice that there's 3 other guys doing Bone to Smoke Bomb and we're all about to lunge them, tanks here. I only have 1 supercharge, so I'm going to end up clipping phase dodge at the end of weapon buff because I'm not going to need it. So I go like that, again into my combo, doing my damage. I'm going to hit my trinket in between supercharge generator and weapon buff. So the Venom Wrist buff is out, so realistically I could clip anything I want with phase dodge. I'm gonna do that next time. So I'm gonna wait 6 seconds again for the Venom Wrist buff to go out. Okay, it's out. I'm gonna clip sidekick into, sorry, my trinket into phase dodge. Okay. Speed drain into weapon buff. And yeah, that's essentially it into methods of how I clip, which is really basic, honestly. You just got to get the hang of not dying to specific things like the doom spin and throne, crown, and all that jazz. Yeah, and that's basically it. I'm just gonna go over all the powers real quick, and I'm gonna post a clip of Jiky last boss, because the last couple of days we haven't been running current content. We've been doing 2-mans and 4-mans and all that, so I don't really have anything saved up of me DPSing full runs where I can show you the scoreboard. But the Jiky was essentially, I think I got ahead by a couple thousand with the other guy, with Casper, which is one of our best DPSs that we've seen, even though he's our main healer. So I think I beat him by a couple thousand in single target, but he beat me in maybe like 300 or 400 in AoE, because I dropped at some point and couldn't get enough smoke bombs. The other 3 DPSs weren't lacking behind too much, but they weren't doing the same damage as us, and we still finished the raid in about 11 minutes, which is pretty fast for Jiky. So it just goes to show you the damage potential of this loadout. And it's a basic loadout. You guys are gonna have to do testing for your own powers, but this is a good place to start off at. Okay, so I'm gonna go over the powers real quick. So in terms of the tanking powers, there's Earth, same loadout as this. I know you guys have Golem or whatever it's called for the pet, but from what I've seen with Sorcery's Fury, the pet doesn't do shit as long as you're, unless you're constantly feeding it with its power. I don't know what the feeding power is called, but it's not worth it in a prec loadout. You're gonna lose too much time where you could be doing more damage doing prec. So if you're doing Earth, same loadout, Robot Psychic, not your pet. Ice, same sort of loadout. Oh, and before I go on, if you guys aren't super speed and aren't gonna switch anytime soon, you don't need to have phase dodge. You can have an extra shield. Or if you want, yeah, you can have an extra shield. You can put it in between your supercharge generator and your weapon buff, so you can hit supercharge generator, your shield, and then weapon buff, and then continue on with your combo. So Earth and Ice, same thing. Fire, same loadout. Atomic, same loadout. Rage, same loadout. But I know a lot of people like using Berserk for single target. If you guys are range, I don't think it works out, but if you're doing AoE damage and you're meleeing or you're close range single targeting, it does some massive damage, but it is a 5000 supercharge, which means it's double speed drain, so you're not necessarily using it to steal people's damage, you're just using it for the sheer amount of damage as it does, so you might have to change your mods for that. Okay, next power set, the Trollers. Gadgets and Mental both have stealth, so where my Flux shield power is, instead of that, you would put in, or instead of phase dodge, whatever you want, you would put in your stealth, and then I don't know how it works exactly because you would have to test it out, but from what I've seen, people would hit their first power in the bar, get into stealth, they would hit surprise attack, and then they get out of it and they continue with their precision combo, and they do some nice damage. I haven't seen any loadouts where they're using speed drain to take other people's damage, but I'm assuming at that point, if you have a lot of speed drains ready and your healer is constantly popping out supercharge, recharge, then at that point you would hit speed drain every time you go before into stealth. So you hit like speed drain, stealth, and then surprise attack or whatever it is. That's for both gadgets and mental. Gadgets, however, you don't need phase dodge. Gadgets has a suppressor turret glitch. The suppressor turret glitch, or not glitch necessarily, but you can jump cancel. So instead of going like that and getting into the combo, you can do the same thing, but you kind of have to jump at suppressor turret and then get into your combo. The good thing about it is the suppressor turret cooldown I think is only 1.5 seconds, which is obviously way less than what phase dodge is with 16.5 seconds. So you can use that to clip your weapon buff every single time. You can use it to clip your speed drain orbitals every single time. So yeah, gadgets would have the most potential, aside from water, which I'll talk about that later. Quantum, hard light, same loadouts as this. I don't think there's anything special about it. Munitions, every munitions DPS I see is might. There's probably a reason to that. So if you're munitions and you really want to go prec, you can go ahead and start off with this loadout, but I don't think there's anything special about it that you can do other than this. Nature, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I have no idea how the superchargers work, because all the natures I see are might based and they're in gorilla form or wolf form. I don't know how they work exactly, and if you can use this loadout if you're doing precision, but I'd say start off with this, play with the superchargers if you want, see how it goes, and if you don't like it, go might, because you're going to be doing ridiculous damage. For the rest of the healer powers, electric, same loadout I use, basic loadout. Celestial, basic loadout, there's nothing special about it. Sorcery, I was actually sorcery for about a week and a half, and then I switched back to electric about a week ago. The thing I found is instead of keeping my shield here, flux, I would put, or no, the shield was called something else in sorcery, but instead of putting a shield in, I would put this power called Invocation of Renewal. Now, it was a healing power, and I wouldn't use it for healing, obviously, but the thing was, like, you could clip it. So whatever you hit, if you hit an orbital, if you hit a power, you can immediately hit Invocation of Renewal, and it was a vulnerable to interrupt, which means, like, the second you hit it and you jump, it's going to cancel. It's kind of like what Fear Gas was back during the AM era, where if you hit Invocation of Renewal and then jump, and on the way down you could continue your combo, or you could jump, hit Invocation of Renewal first, and then on the way down the combo would stop so you could get back in it. I wouldn't use it after weapon buff because I would mess up a lot and it wasn't worth it. The only thing I would use it for was orbitals, backups, and the extra speed drain, because I just pop them, hit Invocation, and then I jump up and then immediately get back into the combo. If you're trying to jump and then do it, you might have to double jump, because mid jump clip, if you're trying to jump like that, hit orbital there and then Invocation, that would be hard. So it'd be something like jump orbital that, and then on the way down, hopefully you have enough distance to start clipping again. And then that finally leaves water. Water, you would use this loadout, but instead of this shield right here, you would put phase dodge there, and you would put Riptide beside weapon buff. So what Riptide, I think it's called Riptide, what Riptide does is it cancels all of the cooldowns of your powers, and you can use them again. So for example, if I hit that power and like that power, and then imagine phase dodge was Riptide. If I hit like Riptide, those two, the first two powers would be off cooldown and I could use them again. Now the thing why that's important is, if you remember, Venomous, the buff for precision lasts for 6 seconds, and Riptide's cooldown is 12 seconds, which is the same as the weapon buff. Which means when Riptide's cooldown goes to the halfway mark, that means it's 6 seconds, and then you can hit your weapon buff again. So your loadout in that situation would be this, and then you would clip Supercharge Generator, weapon buff, and Riptide, and then Supercharge Generator and weapon buff would be off cooldown, but you're not going to pop it yet. You're gonna wait till Riptide's cooldown goes to halfway, which means your Venom Burst buff is gone. So at that point, that's when you would hit Supercharge Generator back into weapon buff, which means technically your Venom Burst buff is up 24/7, and you're hitting Supercharge Generators way faster. So you can get double the amount of speed drains, which means in that situation you'd basically be hitting speed drain every time before weapon buff until you literally run out, because you're going to be at 100% the whole time if you're constantly hitting supercharge. And then phase dodge instead of where the shield is, if you need to clip an extra orbital and get back into your combo. I don't know if you can keep it up 24/7, because after the first round, Riptide's at halfway cooldown, so when you would pop a weapon buff, by the time your weapon buff hits 6% and the buff is gone, Riptide would be up. So I think you could clip like Riptide with weapon buff and then get back into it, and then but at that point you would have to wait. So again, you're gonna have to test these out yourself depending on what power you are. This video is just meant to help you as a starter guide if you're trying to use precision. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm gonna put in the Zoo Elite last boss so you can see the speed at which we did the run and the amount of damage. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can just contact me in game and I'll try to help you out as much as I can.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh, fucker killed more ads than me.